Hey, good morning, everybody. Let's see. Camera's up. All right, good. My name is Sean Ornelas, Director of Marketing over at TicketForce, and Taylor, our marketing coordinator from yesterday, too. She's with me, too. We have, I'm very grateful to have a panel of some really smart, experienced, and pretty people on our panel. I'm talking about you, Andrew. You're very pretty.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lynn. Just kidding. You're pretty high up there. But I wanted to say thank you to everyone who could join us today. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing, how things have changed so much in the past year, 3 years, 5 years especially. And I'd like to start by introducing everybody, making that way of joining us is making sure their audio and video is working. Hope you all had a good, safe Halloween and are gearing up for the holidays. Make sure that, let's see if everything's working here. I got a poll I'll throw out to everybody. Let's see how you're all doing. That pop up? All right, cool. If you guys out there listening want to answer back, it's a good way for me to test and see how the Colling stuff is working. And share with everybody where you're at so far going into the holiday season. I haven't met a person yet who said, oh yeah, I'm ready for the holidays. I'm ready for Thanksgiving today. So, cool. So, most people are the same way. Here at TicketForce, we're creating a foundation, a new foundation of successful communication, and not just externally, like with our customers, but internally as well. We want to prevent our departments from working in silos. So at so many companies I've worked with before, marketing department works independently of sales, works independently of membership, and works independently of box office and such. And so here, we want to be able to share ideas and collaborate on successful strategies without working in those silos. And those ingredients, those are the ingredients we've been using in making our new ticketing platform so amazing. The people on our panel today have a combined 70 plus years of experience. They've all worked both in sales and in marketing departments with a large variety of companies, venues, and events. I'm excited to welcome and introduce our expert guests for today's marketing panel. Let's see. All right, Lynn's first. Lynn is my second favorite person from New Jersey. Second only to NPR's Peter Sagal. Wait, don't tell me I like that guy. Lynn's an amazing listener and can help any company discover how to find their unique audiences and programmatic strengths like video, etc. She has a daughter named Sean, spelled just like me. She's one of the most brutally honest people I know. And I'm not embarrassed to admit it, but she can outdrink me in beer any day of the week. For joining us, Lynn.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Cool.
And yes, I can drink you under the table.
Our next panelist is Eric Bikofsky. Eric is one of the most experienced people working in marketing that I know. Don't let the fact that he believes Tom Brady was innocent of deflating footballs sway your judgment in any way. He has been behind the scenes in media and events for a really long time, including sports with the Arizona Cardinals, arts with the Mesa Art Center here in Arizona, and even unique promotional events through cable networks like MTV, Fox Sports, TBS, USA. When I have questions about best practices and strategies to use in digital media, Eric is always ready with a great story. Thanks for joining us, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. And Andrew Meister.
He was innocent, by the way, just so you know.
And Andrew Meister, there's not a lot I can say about Andrew that won't sound like I'm making it up. He's done just about everything in my bucket list. He's one of the most creative people I know. His crazy work ethic has created many large-scale, high-profile events in Phoenix, usually built around music, culture, or the wildly popular culinary industry. His background in advertising is magnified with his skills in developing websites and digital marketing. I value his opinion on the future of marketing as much as I do his opinion on music, TV, and some of the best places to grab a bite or a drink. Andrew, I'm glad you're joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
What's that?
I said and bow ties.
And both
Yes, I have a lot of those.
Myself, a little bit about myself, as I haven't met a lot of you out there. I've been in media and marketing for over 15 years, working with the Phoenix Suns as the arena marketing manager. Before TicketForce, I was director of marketing for Meister Art Center, largest art center in the Southwest. Increased their attendance and attendees at least 10% every one of my 6 years over there. I'm mostly proud of the fact that I've been able to meet some incredible people and built some amazing relationships with creative, smart, and well-traveled people, 3 of who are on this very panel. So thank you to everyone who's listening and watching. And let's jump in to our stuff, our questions. So the title of our panel today is "Marketing Isn't What It Used to Be." Long gone are the days of gimmicks, clever contests, and obvious, seduction. False charm and not being genuine is obvious and being revealed to people. People are seeing through it and refusing to spend money with companies that use old tactics like those. This shift in consumer expectations comes on the back of the digital revolution and overall skepticism towards perceivable inauthenticity, not being genuine. As consumer psychology changes, marketing is having to adjust as well, and we're seeing that almost on a daily, if not weekly basis. Building a strategy upon trust, transparency, and ethics is now taking center stage in every department, and not just with a company, but with departments, employees, and stakeholders. All right, sorry about that. Looking back in the past year or so, I'm certain that all of us, especially the people on the panel here, have all seen examples of marketers and even ourselves working through these changes, fixing miscalculations, learning new lessons, and making bold adjustments in both strategy and even in execution of our plans. When I look back recently, I'm reminded of some of those mistakes and some of those miscalculations. When you all look back, what are some of the examples of miscalculations and adjustments you've seen companies make or that you've made on behalf of clients? Eric, you have any thoughts?
That's a good question. I think if every agency and platform could, bat 1,000, there'd really only be reason for 1 or 2. So I think miscalculations happen all the time. When you sit and strategize with the client before you launch any campaign, you think you have all the parameters figured out, and you press go, and all of a sudden the expectations don't rise to where you thought they were going to be. So obviously having to adjust on the fly is big. And the great part about digital media is it allows you to kind of change on the fly. You can make a lot of quick adjustments. At Colling Media, we have a saying: if you're going to fail, fail quickly, and learn from those mistakes and change directions if you need to. It's really about kind of, for lack of a better term, turning the knob and switches, and maybe they're larger turns or smaller turns. But every step of the way, you want to learn what's working and what's not working, and adjust based on those results. Back 20 years ago, there was newspaper, television, outdoor, and radio, and if you wanted to change a TV commercial because it wasn't working, good luck. That's going to take you another couple months to get changed out. To change ad copy on a Facebook ad, to change a piece of content, anything on a display ad, whatever it might be, videos, you can exchange those super quickly on digital, which allows you to make those adjustments. So miscalculations are going to happen. Nobody's going to be 100% right 100% of the time. So you just got to be able to keep an eye on it, make sure you're adjusting and optimizing as you go along.
That's a good point. A year ago, yeah, my mic's on. A year ago, when I was at the Art Center, we shifted from all of our print mediums, with the exception of some entertainment sources that had a proven readership, and we looked at partnerships that allowed for patron experiences as a resource for a new audience. Local food, local places to go drink, other local entertainment areas and services to partner with in lieu of advertising that wasn't giving us a direct ROI, and those proved to be good steps to take, and building those relationships ended up helping us in the long run anyway. So, Lynn, do you have any thoughts?
I always do. I think some of the issues that we run into when people are trying to reestablish strategy is that they're really not clear on what their KPIs are, and really kind of figuring out, okay, what is it that we're trying to get out of this next medium? So the first thing you have to do is really just establish, if you're going to make some changes and you're going to change how you've always done things, you really need to focus on what those tactics are and what your KPIs are going to be, so you can really figure out, did it not work? And you need to understand what KPIs work for what strategy. So if you're going into video, that KPI is going to be different than your social KPI. So you need to understand what you're going to be monitoring in order to figure out if that really did in fact make a difference from one year to the next, from one event to the next, so that you can decide, yes, this is something that we want to spend more time or money in, or not. So I think really just the biggest mistake that we've seen are the people that just really don't monitor what's going to be going on behind the scenes, not just what the viewers or the users see.
Very cool.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I think that's a great point. I think it's really about determining what success is up front, so that you can, you're always reaching for what that, as Lynn said, the KPIs are of any type of campaign, so you know if you're heading in the right direction or if you're not, if you have to make those adjustments.
Cool. Andrew, any thoughts on that?
I agree with both of their commentary, but I think another thing too that I see a lot of times is, or at least a conversation that we have to have with clients, just because we can target people that we think are our consumers doesn't always mean that that's exactly who's going to perform well from a KPI standpoint or a purchase standpoint. So I always want to make sure that just because we can find that tiny grain of sand on the beach doesn't mean that we need to neglect the entire, opportunity that's out there, because not everybody is a behavioral target that's going to end up wanting to buy what we want. So make sure you still have some broad reach, depending on the strategy. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
That's good. A lot of our marketing has shifted from, I wouldn't say shift. Well, shifted in weight as far as importance, and that's it's shifted to content and native advertising, stuff like that. Real quick poll for people listening in. Let's see if I can push this here. How many of you haven't started or are new to content marketing? We'll let that roll a little bit here. With the shift towards authenticity, content has emerged as a dominant marketing strategy. For those who are new to bringing this medium on board, or for those who are currently using it already, what are your thoughts to being successful for venues and events? Andrew?
I think the most important thing from content, it is definitely a buzzword, but we need to define the goal. I mean, once you have that goal defined, it kind of helps drive your strategy, so you understand what things you should be doing and what things you shouldn't be doing, because us just creating content to create content's really not going to help us be successful in terms of, accomplishing said goals. So I think really the definition of what are we looking to accomplish with this really kind of lets us put our stake in the ground and then build our strategy around that.
Cool. Any thoughts on that, Eric?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Is that ultimately any type of content? Yeah, you could throw cat videos out there all day long, which people are going to gravitate towards. But ultimately, is that getting your message across, and is that really what your end goal is just get views. You know, it's really about keeping that content engaging. Sean, you and I have had some really in-depth conversations about content and the value of content. You know, to me, I think you have to have a strategy of that paid media alongside content. I don't know if content alone is going to be able to push the message that you want and bring people back in to the funnel, so to speak. So it's really, you know, again, that content has to be relevant to the people you're serving it to. It has to be engaging, but, you know, it also has to be less invasive to a point of asking people to do something, right? I think people understand that if they're seeing a piece of content that looks like a sales piece, they're going to, you know, scroll right over it, swipe it, get out of there. So it's really, we look at it as a twofold piece where there's content working to kind of get those people that already engage with your brand, but you also have to kind of go outside that realm and find other people that you can bring back into the fold to really talk about what your value prop is, and then have a good call to action on any type of advertising, where the content piece is really more about just, you know, engaging pieces of information that people can gravitate towards too. So you really kind of, I think, have to separate those messages, because people nowadays are a little bit smarter to realize when they're being sold on a piece of content versus it being a, you know, paid piece of advertisement.
Makes sense. Lynn?
I think first and foremost, you have to think like your consumer. So especially for venues that have a wide variety of different types of events that happen on a regular basis, give your consumers what they want. They want exclusive access. They want to see things maybe behind the scenes. You really need to think like the purchaser. So if you're trying to sell more tickets to an event and you have an opportunity to give them something that they can't experience, then give it to them and let them see it, let them taste it, let them kind of feel what it's going to be like to be at that event, so that it drives them to the ticket purchase. And I would also recommend finding partners, some media outlets to partner with, so they can share the content that you're trying to get out there. So if you're trying to give them a sneak peek behind the scenes of a new show that's coming, well, the media company wants that too, because it gives them some type of exclusive content to share. So if they can share it through your social platforms so that you're getting credit for it, they're getting credit for it, and it just kind of opens things up in viewership for you, do it. Anything that you can to make it shareable and to give your ticket intenders something that they can't necessarily see on their own. That's what they're looking for. So I think you just have to take a step back and think like your consumer as often as possible, and make it fun and consistent. Be consistent. Don't just have it a one shot, because no one will ever see it.
It seems like a lot of media companies out there understand this need and this drive for content, so they've been expanding their opportunities for clients to put content on different media platforms. Andrew, how do you determine which ones are better than the others?
Well, that's a good question. You also got to think as newsrooms shrink or as staff shrink in the media companies, there is really a opportunity for both clients and the media companies to utilize that. It really needs to come into kind of like when we're talking about what content we want to create, really what is our audience looking for? Just because an advertiser might be willing to spend a bunch of money, you know, doesn't mean that you need to feature some kind of boring show. We got to be thinking about who's our audience, what do they want to see, and does this make sense for what we're looking to accomplish as a media company, you know, and find those right partnerships. And then a lot of times, too, being creative, not afraid to ask if you are the venue. If there's someone who maybe the relationship isn't super strong with, there could be an opportunity if their audience matches up for you to start building that relationship, and that can grow into something else as well.
With the rise of social media channels as news outlets, where people share current events as they happen, as opposed to retrospectively, how do you feel about participating in this arena of marketing? Is it productive to create live conversations, or do we work within the safe view of responding to consumers as they reach out what is the, from a venue and event, standpoint, what is the better strategy? Have any thoughts, Lynn?
I don't think it's a this or that. I think it has to be a blend of the two. So you're constantly, your social media platform is your receptionist, right? So it's someone that's going to be there to answer questions, to have conversations with people in real time, and make sure that they're able to participate in any communication that the venue has. The live events is more of a content strategy, so you need to make sure that you're consistently getting out there and putting out the type of content that people want to see, make it shareable. But I think above all is you want to make sure that you're staying in touch with your viewers and your users, your fans, and not letting things just kind of hang out there. If there's a question that people have, or if you see a concern, address it and make sure that people realize that you're a real person there, and it's not just an empty void that's just going to be sitting out there for the remainder of life. So I think in terms of whether it needs to be live or it needs to be just a communication tool, it needs to be both.
Cool. Eric, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting in today's day and times. I think it's a slippery slope to get involved too quickly. I think with any type of venue that has a large, diverse group of events that are going on, you probably want to stay a little bit further away and kind of see how things really hash out before getting involved in those types of things. Just because you don't want to alienate one group of potential ticket buyers versus the others. Unfortunately, in today's news streams, it seems to be an us versus them, or you have to choose a side, and unless you have an extremely strong brand, choosing a side could be detrimental, I think, to your business. So you always want to kind of, tiptoe into those waters and kind of get a feel for where your viewers, your followers, where they kind of stand, and then maybe choose a side. But I think diving right in on something like that is, I would choose to root against it. Again, unless you're one of those large enough brands that you have such a strong following that, it doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on, people are still going to gravitate towards you.
Cool. Customers, you're right. Customers, patrons, audience members, the public, we all realize that we have the power to affect success or failure of a product, service, and even a company. Viewing consumers as interlinking relationships that bridge your services to people's lives is ultra important right now. And without genuine communication, no one will care about what you have to say on social channels, which could then lead to wasted advertising dollars, wasted marketing. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Well, let me think about that one real quick.
I think that like a lot of what Andrew, what you do is is content, advertising, media based and stuff. Does your company offer the opportunity for the public to chat, to comment on articles and news and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting who the chatters are going to be. I mean, very much to like what Eric was saying, it's the us and them. The super fans are going to be vocal, and the super non-fans are going to be vocal. We got to keep in mind that that's not, in that online world specifically, there's a lot of people that just are there to view what's going on. So we can't let the commentary always drive what we do and our actions, because you're typically going to get the two extremes in terms of the comments and what people are going to say. And you have to, know that the truth is somewhere in between all of the buzz that you hear or the feedback that you might be hearing from a social channel. It's very much similar to a lot of the online reviews. They're either super, super happy and super fans, or they're super, super mad. But the people that just enjoy their experience typically don't say anything.
I guess I hadn't thought about it like that. That's interesting. Many companies are embracing what's now being called the relationship era. We're in the relationship era right now when it comes to marketing. If you type in "I love Apple" in your search bar, like in Google, you'll get something like 70 million results in 0.7 seconds. If you type in "I love Amazon," you'll get over 300 million results in 0.8 seconds. Companies are spending billions of dollars every year to get the attention of their consumers, but it won't translate into social likes, social follows, or social hits. So if money doesn't buy love in the relationship era, what's the currency of today's market? Eric?
It's a good question. I think customer service is always going to be number one, no matter what type of business you're in. And having that relationship with the consumer should always be a priority. It's funny you mentioned about the comments before, and one of the things in this venue, so to speak, that I would recommend is always respond to those comments so that all of your customers can see how you respond to those, whether they're good or bad. Whether it's just hey, we apologize for the inconvenience because the parking lot was only half available, or I had an obstructed view seat or something of that sort. As Andrew said, you're going to hear from the people that had a bad experience. So I would always encourage the venue or the business owner to go out and reach back out to those people and comment on it. And you don't always have to offer something, free ticket, or half off or whatever it might be. I wouldn't always recommend that depending on what the issue is, but you always want to know and show the other people, all of your other consumers, all your other ticket buyers, that you are paying attention to what they say. So I think that the relationship that any venue is going to have with the ticket buyer, whether they come to one show a year, one event a year, or a season ticket holder at these venues, you want to show that you hear what they're saying and are responding accordingly. So I think that the customer service always has to be, point one when it comes to that relationship and that currency, as you say, with your ticket buyers.
That's good. Transparency is important for us. We're building a new foundation of communication here within our company and our employees. What happens in the boardroom is no longer a secret anymore. And discussions are quickly being held out in public, and they find their way even if you try to keep a tight hold on them. So I think in the age of in this relationship era, transparency is really important. Lynn, you have any thoughts?
I agree with Eric. I think that customer service is always right, and the job isn't over once the show starts. I had, a personal experience of mine at a baseball game, and Eric might actually know this story, but it was the middle of summer in Phoenix, Arizona, and I brought suntan lotion with me because I am very pale and I didn't want to die a horrible burn death. And so I get to the venue and the guys take my suntan lotion away from me and say that I can't bring it into the stadium. So I flipped out a little because I knew what this meant for me, that it's going to be a really bad experience for myself. So I actually tweeted to the stadium and said, there's nothing on the ticket that said I couldn't bring this. Here I am now in the middle of summer. I've got, the sun beating down on me and I've got nothing to protect myself with. And I actually gave my seat number, and within 10 minutes, I had a huge thing of suntan lotion handed to me by someone. And so I think that just proves that you have the ability to take what could have been a very bad experience for someone and turn it around because you paid attention. So I think when the show starts, the job is just beginning. You want to make sure that you are just monitoring that communication. And if people are out there and they're having a bad experience, figure out a way to make it a better experience for them in real time, because they will prove the people that are complaining online will also most likely be the ones that will retract if you prove them otherwise and you kind of turn their head around a little bit. So it just proves that the relationship and like Eric mentioned, the customer service is really very important to keep things alive. And it creates a story for me to share to a lot of other people about how great the experience ended up being. So I think that should be first and foremost with anything that comes with social.
Cool. Good story.
You know, that's a true story. I was at that game and ran into her.
And you heard about it.
Yeah, because Lynn burns when she walks from her house to her car. So that's totally true.
I'm not supposed to be here.
And I will say that might have, even if she had a sunburn, just based on the consumption there, she might not have felt it by the 9th inning. So either way, she was okay.
True. Andrew?
I agree with all of that commentary. I also think value is really important. We're never going to be able to buy that love, as you mentioned, but we need to provide value. I mean, I can think back to times where I have, camped at a concert in the middle of an awful environment and slept through mud to get to where I wanted to go and was outside in the heat all day because I wanted to experience the show and what was going on. So, and I'm very, in those times when the value outweighs kind of the uncomfort, people are going to have a good time. I agree you need to deal with the odd, the Lynn stories, and that's a genius way to do it. You got to pay attention, but we also got to make sure that we're focusing on value, because if you're offering stuff and opportunities of value, people are going to find you and find that experience, because there's a lot of options for us, and people want what they want. So I think focusing on customer service and value will really, help make the job easier for everybody.
That goes a long way towards something that we work on, which is providing an arena for trust. Humanizing a company is a key factor, right, in the relationship era. People trust companies for the same reason that they trust people. They're reliable. You provide support. You're honest. You're loyal. You have shared values and empathy. Those are all key factors that we look for in getting our message out about who we are and what we do and how we provide solutions for venues and events and stuff. And so when we can translate that, when we can tell those stories through our marketing and through social, that value that we find is worth, quite often, it can be worth more than a paid advertisement sometimes, like in a magazine or something. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I think to build off of the trust thing, like, no one's going to bat 1,000 in anything, and it's really how you deal with those uncomfortable, situations or the errors or the mistakes. Like, if you think back to even Lynn's story, that was a person at the front gate who thought they were doing the right thing. Like, that one individual doesn't speak for everybody, and they handled it the right way. So admit fault when you're at fault and deal with it in the most human way, and I do think that does build trust. And we're all going to be wronged. It's just, how did they deal with the wrong? And that's really going to help you be successful as you move forward.
Any other thoughts?
You broke up. Was that for me? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just any other thoughts just out there?
I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, especially at a venue, where you and I work together at Mesa Arts Center, where you have the performance, so to speak, and the venue, and they're somewhat in their own silos. If something does, good or bad, happen, how does the performer differ in response to the actual venue? If a show's canceled, the dates move, things of that sort, they probably get a response from the performer apologizing, but how does the venue in itself also respond to that same cancellation or date change or whatever it might be?
In our past, we've made sure to sorry about that, some audio stuff going on. We had a policy put in place a long time ago that we were honest and transparent to let people know as early as possible. And quite often, we connected our messages with whoever that performer was, linking them to those messages, so that it didn't just come from the venue, although the venue was often heralded as the bad guy for canceling the event. Connecting the performer and the talent allowed for a softer message, more honesty, and giving people an answer or a solution was always part of what we did. So we were always honest with what the reason was, but we always also had what the solution would be. Call or click this link, or do nothing because we're going to reschedule the show, and everyone's safe. If it's a problem, just reach out to us directly. We'll do everything we can to take care of you. But yeah, talking to customers, excuse me, expressing genuine empathy for the situation. Those things are out of everyone's control, and will pay dividends back, even when people are angry. The people are starting to hear and understand that genuineness. They accept that more than just a blanket rescheduled, sticker over a poster or something.
Doesn't always work.
Yeah. Other than another poll for our audience here. Let's see. Let's throw this one out there. Other than your events, what items do you post about on social media? There's some multiple choice options there. Sharing, like we've been talking about, has really become the new form of currency. Evolutionary psychologists tell us that sharing is a human need and that it's hardwired into our genes. On the marketing side, when we share publicly, we are telling people about ourselves, about our character, about our preferences, and that creates credibility and social bonds. It's why sharing and liking and commenting has become more of our common language as we market. Most importantly, if people are responding, then they are engaged. How do we decide what kind of content to share? Andrew, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, from a venue standpoint, I kind of think about, I need to be educated, inspired, or answered. So that's a lot of when I'm thinking about what do I want to put out there. It should have some sort of goal behind it. Humanization is always a key element to sharing because it does make the venue or the event, run by actual people. But I do think if we're thinking about what am I putting out there, there's not enough hours in the day to do what we need to do, so we should have some strategy behind that. And that's the thing I always think about. Am I educating somebody what to do, what's going to happen when they get there, what can they bring, what can't they bring? Do I want them to be inspired to buy a ticket or share it to their community of individuals, or am I answering some questions about what's going on or what is going to happen when they get there? So those are my three kind of bullet points that I think about, and that kind of drives a lot of the content that, that we urge our clients and customers to post.
According to the poll so far, it looks like the large majority is funny and silly items, followed by industry-related information. Interesting. Lynn, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that unfortunately, this is where analytics comes in, and as boring sometimes as numbers can be to a lot of us that have more of a creative mindset, I think really the best way to figure out what content to share, when to share it, how to share it, and everything in between is to really look at your analytics. They're there for a reason, and they tell stories that you might not even imagine. So going through and looking through your insights and really figuring out what content really took off, what fell flat, what time of the day are people on there, when are they not on there, what are they sharing themselves? Look around, for any of the public profiles that are out there that are fans of yours, see what they're doing on their own page. Recognize what type of content they share themselves. Learn a little bit about your fans that you can, so that you can actually generate content that they're going to share and that they feel comfortable sharing and they want to engage with you. So I think when it comes to this side of things, it's really all about the analytics, and you need to, if you don't know how to read it, there's certainly a lot of things that you can read, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram, Snap now as well. There's ways for you to really get a full understanding of what your analytics are there to tell you, and it's necessary to take a deep dive on a regular basis and see if you're still staying consistent with your engagement levels. It's not the fun answer.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 110% if I can go up to 110%. Everything is driven by analytics these days, so but it
Tom
does.
Brady does. What's that? Tom Brady goes that.
The best. The numbers show it. But to me, when it comes to content, kind of going back to one of the earlier questions, it has to be relevant to the consumer, to the ticket buyer, to the people who are visiting the venue. But also, and I think Lynn does a great job of this if you ever follow her on any of her social platforms, is you want to become kind of the expert in your field. And that could be from your own thoughts and things that you learn in your own daily workspace, or it could be finding other content that's out there and reposting it and commenting on it. Lynn does a great job of using other, whether it's Ad Age, whether it's media posts, all these other things that people in our industry subscribe to. She'll read it, she'll give in-depth responses to it of why it's an important piece for everybody else to read. And to the point of it not being the most exciting type of stuff, you still want to kind of position yourself, your venue, as the expert or the best place to be. And it could just be showing how the new stadium in Minnesota is using technology to make their their ticket buyers experience a lot better, and just talk about that, and all of a sudden maybe turn that into, here's what we're doing at our venue to do the same thing, to accomplish the same thing. You always want to make sure that you are positioning yourself as people in the know. So the content I always tell my clients to produce is something that's usually relevant to them or to the consumers, and it just makes people, when they come back, they all, to Andrew's point, they always want to learn more. To be a teachable piece of content if it can be. And yes, go ahead and throw a cat video in there every once in a while or something. Coming back, but if you can make yourself the expert, whether it's an auto service place just talking about why you should get your tires rotated every 5,000-10,000 miles, whatever it is, even though you're not saying, hey, come in because we're doing it for free. It's really just about making you the expert in that field. So when something does happen to my car, I know that this is the place I want to go because they seem to know enough about what they're talking about that it's a place I want to drop my car off, or a venue that I want to go to because the experience there of what they're telling me is the place where I want to be.
That's cool. We, for us, when on the venue side and the event side, I know that we one of the most successful things that we did when I was at the Art Center was we created a social media personality that allowed our voice to remain consistent. So whether we were being funny, whether we were being inspiring, whether we were sharing news or industry information, or trying to find a way to provide value to our community, we had a consistent voice, so that way we could be reliable, independent, but it also allowed us to collaborate internally with other departments. There's always different agendas within different departments. Box office wants people to know that marketing is limited. The talent wants you to know that the show's almost sold out, so hurry up and get your tickets. Membership department wants you to know that if you are a member, you would have had access to a pre-sale, that wasn't available to the public. So how do you get all those messages out and not look like you're shilling and selling all the time and stuff like that? That's really important. And so a lot of the things that you guys said, Andrew, being inspirational and being creative is really important. Finding ways to share those messages in creative and inspirational ways ended up helping increase our viewership, our likes, our sharing, our commenting as a venue. And that really helped to increase our attendance as well, I believe. Any other thoughts on that?
The only thing I think sometimes know that the activities you're doing, whether it be on social media or being the expert or being inspiring, that stuff often translates into the success that you want to see, but it's just not from click to buy. If your expectation is, I'm going to post this show, A, don't be super salesy, B, inspirational and fun, know that that will, if you're saying the right things to the right people, they'll do what you want. But, I often get into kind of interesting conversations with people that are just looking at this linear, I did this and this didn't happen, this wasn't successful. Know that there's more to it than just what one can see from a click and a purchase. That effort and that activity does pay off in the end if you're inspiring, educational, consistent, and saying the right stuff.
I think the consistency to me is extremely important. If you have any social channels, just make sure you have something on there. If I'm a consumer and I come back, maybe even once every couple months, and the last post was from a year and a half ago, I'm back to that site. So you want to make sure you're always posting something, consistently posting, so that there's always something for me to check on. Again, whether it's relevant to me or not, at least we know that you're on there. So, as you said, if there's any specific messaging about a show that's going on or parking or traffic or whatever it might be, I know that it's going to be up to date and relevant when I get there.
Lynn, do you want to say something?
I was just going to say, like, we in the newsrooms that I've worked in, we actually termed the phrase "facecast," and it was because we were always working on the newscast. But when it came time and social was really, we were trying to figure out what to do with on the social side. We came up with the facecast. You have to plan. You have to have everything ready to go. Yes, there's always going to be breaking news or breaking events or elements that have to kind of find their way in there sooner than later, but planning is a really big part of a successful social media page. And so you need to build your facecast. You need to kind of say, okay, at this time, this type of content really works. At this time, this piece of content really works. Or here's the area that it's kind of gray, and so we're going to play around in this trial and error time frame or with this type of content. And you really just need to put in effort and time into planning what your page is going to look like, whether it be the personality of that page, whether it be the type of content, the tone in which it's going to take, and what times you're going to post. So I think it's just really, you just have to kind of sit down and plan, and it'll actually take as much effort as it takes in the beginning to kind of get it all done. The relief of not having to think last minute, oh my God, I haven't posted for 2 days. What am I going to post? I don't know what to post. It really takes that anxiety away because it's already scheduled. You already know exactly what's to come next.
I think to build off of that too is know the platform and who your audience really is. A lot of times people will think social media is like a magic bullet. It's like, yeah, you're really only speaking to your super fans, because I don't go around just liking a bunch of places I've never been or never shopped or have never gone. So know really who that platform speaks to, and then make sure you have strategies set for, okay, we need to make sure that we're talking to people who aren't our super fans and love us to death, because those ones are going to be buying tickets anyway. So make sure that it's just not all into that one bucket. But absolutely planning helps. You can tell when you see a page, like these guys have a strategy, they know what they're doing, they know when they're posting. You can really tell the difference of that pre-planning and that effort that you put in.
Good point. We have one more question, and then we're going to open up for some for questions from the listeners and the attendees. So last question I've got is there's been so much change in a short amount of time that the only thing that we can be sure of is more change. But for many of us, we've discovered that relying on the past doesn't work as well as it used to anymore. Convincing others outside the marketing world is difficult. What are some of your calls to action as we move forward and continue to adjust to change? Lynn?
Oh, I get to go first. This is a tough one. Convincing CEOs and CMOs and everyone in between, board of directors, all of them, that change is coming and change has happened and it's coming again, and you need to reevaluate budget on a consistent basis is very hard. And I think the best thing that you can possibly do is prepare yourself for the questions of why do we need to do this? What's the purpose of this? What are we going to see from this? And I think bringing in and looking at your competitors or people that are doing a great job in other markets and really getting a feel for what it is that they're doing and making friends with other venues and really kind of building a team that you can kind of just utilize for answers and questions and other experts in your field is really going to be extremely important so that you can actually have everything kind of ready to go so you can explain the reasons why change is going to be necessary for the venue to get to the next level. And sometimes, and you didn't hear this from me at all, but sometimes, asking for forgiveness is a lot easier than asking for permission. And in some cases, if you have extra budget or if you want to try something and you keep getting the no, but in your gut, you're just like, this is what I have to do. And I know that this is going to take it to the next level. And I know that it's really what we need. And you're not going to get fired. Don't get fired, but try it, and then go back and say, look what we did. This is what I'm telling you why we need to do this. But if you're going to try something like that, you better make sure that you monitor every single piece of it so that you can really use it as a way to convince the others that this is the change that you'd like to make.
That's good. Eric, how do you motivate your clients that want to make some changes in the digital world? How do you help them convince and talk to the rest of the company to make those changes?
That's actually a great question, because as an agency, kind of our promise to our clients is to really always be staying on top of new technologies, and it's our job to learn about them and find out where they fit best into any kind of strategy. I think you talked about trust earlier. I think that trust as an agency to a client also needs to be grown to a point where we can recommend something. Hey, this great new platform has come out. We want to give it a test. To Lynn's point, we may not be sure where it's going to go, but at least we've seen it, we've read about it, we've researched it, and we feel that this is something that could take you to the next level. Maybe let's take 5%, 10% of your budget and implement this new strategy. And then, see how that works. Keep an eye on it, as Lynn said. Make sure that it's going in the right direction as you guys think. And if not, shut it off, right? We try new things all the time. A lot of times we'll even try it for Colling Media, for our own company first, to make sure we can run it correctly. We know how to optimize it correctly. And then say, hey, look, client A, client B, client C, we've tried this. We know it works. We feel it's going to work, for you to gain more leverage, to sell more tickets, to bring in more business, and we'll implement those strategies. I think perfect example is influencer marketing, which is, I think, still fairly in its infancy. That influencer marketing can go a long way. We work with a lot of technical schools that do welding, HVAC, things of that sort. And we put together an influencer marketing campaign for a couple of their open houses, and it was brand new to them. Nobody really knew how it was going to go, and it was really about finding the right people, managing those people correctly, and they turned out to have some of the bigger open houses that they ever had, because not only were these people promoting it for them, they were going to be there, they were giving out tchotchkes, all those fun things. But for us as an agency, it was a little bit scary as well, because we didn't know, right? We were kind of venturing into that dark hole, so to speak, just as our clients were. But again, we were there with them every step of the way, and we were getting reports every day to understand, yes, this is working or it's not working, so that everybody was under, had the same expectations. But with this world and every day new platforms coming up, and I'll get text messages at 4 o'clock in the morning from one of my team members. Hey, check this out. It's great. We should try it. My first response is, go to bed. My second one is, great. Let's find the right client to test this with, and then kind of moving forward from there. So it's a lot of testing. be prepared to fail with new platforms because not every single one of them is going to hit a home run. But you want to learn from those experiences if you do fail and find out, how do you use it better the next time.
Cool. Andrew, how do you help your clients motivate change internally in their companies?
Try to supply as much data, insight, and strategy to it. I think will definitely help. Like, this is what we're thinking, this is why we think this would be impactful, and here's what we're looking to do. I mean, a lot of times just having that, being able to answer some questions from their boss will give them that comfort and opportunity, and they need to know that we have their back. Like, hey, I'm here, I'm going to fall on the sword if this doesn't work, but here's why I think this is okay, to go get the sign off. I do think with all of these new things, we have to make sure that we're trying things, testing things, but I always run into the, hey, we want to do all this new stuff, but when the basics are not even close to fine-tuned or even executed appropriately, sometimes there's this weird balance that can happen of like, yeah, I want to test, but you know what, your site alone is just awful. So do we really need to be putting our focus on this brand new thing just because it's new and shiny when we have a lot of real, we have some holes in the ship over here that we should probably fix. So it's definitely a balance, but getting the buy-in from them into your vision and why you think it's appropriate, and absolutely got to try. And I agree with Lynn. I'm asking for forgiveness all day.
I think that to dovetail off of Andrew's point, I think you want to make sure, because your clients are going to come to you and say, hey, look at this, let's try this great thing. You want to make sure that you're not spreading yourself too thin, that you don't have too many different platforms going on at the same time, so none of them are effective at that point. But, as Andrew said, you want to do your research and find out what's it going to take to at least do a successful test on it to know whether or not it works or doesn't work. So you want to make sure that you're not spread out too thin, have those tentacles in 15, 20 different platforms, unless, of course, you have a large enough budget to do that. But you always want to be careful of testing new things and shutting down something else that is working to test a new thing, because that might get you in trouble as well.
Good points. We're getting close to the hour, so I want to wrap things up by throwing one more poll out to everybody listening. Looking into 2018, what are some of the topics that you're most curious about? In the marketing world, there are a lot of new technologies and new channels that we've been talking about that we have available for us to use. And are emerging as some of the bigger companies are starting to use them harder and stronger, and so we're going to start seeing if the effectiveness of some of that stuff. Some of the key takeaways I have while the poll's up. Lynn, you mentioned this, establishing your specific KPIs to measure necessary change, and find ways to go above and beyond. Because the social media world loves to share those experiences. Andrew, being creative on ways to provide value to our customers can go. That value can go a lot, can last and be more valuable and go longer than maybe sometimes a paid advertisement. Being inspirational and creative can help you increase your social community. Eric, you mentioned playing on the side of caution is best practice for social media conversation, so that you don't alienate a potential group of people you hadn't thought about. And then I want to end it with the last tip that you had, Eric, and we all talked about it too, which was making customer service number one in the relationship era, in the era where love is the what am I trying to say? Is the currency. Love is the currency that we use, and being transparent is also valuable as well. So providing, keeping customer service a priority, not just for the customer service department, but also for the marketing department, but for the finance department, for sales, for box office, for everybody. Is actually becoming more valuable than it used to be in the past. I'm going to shut down the poll, but I wanted to read the results really quick. Tied for first was target marketing channels and tracking analysis tools are appealing to our audience, with the second being content strategies. So that leads us into the final few minutes, and we'll we'll stay open for as long as it takes to answer a handful of questions. Any that we don't get to, any emails that we don't get to, or excuse me, any questions that we don't get to, we'll email you directly, because we'll have them recorded here on the webinar. So feel free to reach out, not just to myself, but directly to anybody on our panel. You don't have to include me if you don't want to, about anything that we talked about today, or more importantly, anything that we didn't talk about today. I trust each one of these people as much as I trust, as if they were my own family, with the exception of Eric and football picks. But any questions popping up?
Yeah, it looks like we have one from Jeff Weber. He says, what's the one thing I should tell my fresh out of college marketing person to grow our presence using common tools?
Can you repeat it?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, sorry.
On there, sorry.
Sean, can you mute yourself? Yeah, you're getting kicked. Okay. What's the #1 thing I should tell my fresh out of college marketing person to grow our presence using common tools?
You want me to go? Who's going?
Yeah, go ahead then.
Well, honestly, I would say to think ahead. Make sure that you have your strategy kind of in place, and don't just write something on the fly and just let it jump right out there. You really want to have some thought into what it is you're about to post. But also, I would use and abuse your friends. So, make sure that you're having your friends share, make sure that you're getting your friends involved, and so that content that's there, that you can use it for sharing and just kind of growing your fan base. So in my mind, it would be, think through your thoughts before you just publish, and then make sure that you share on all content levels, so that so that your friends and can get involved as well, so that you're kind of growing the fan base organically. And don't forget about your employees. Make sure that your employees are involved as well, so that they can participate in the sharing of content.
I'll piggyback on that. For us, what's really important, or at least, I ran an internship program over at the Art Center for 6 years, and it was very successful. And we were successful because we put our interns and our people who are new to learning about marketing, we put them in the shoes of our customers. So we made them learn our buyer personas. We made them learn about the buyer journey, so they understood those things. So many times in a company, in a venue, or with an event, the voices that want to speak to the social world are voices that are coming from the inside out versus the outside in, not putting ourselves in our customer's shoes, not allowing for empathy or genuineness. Shows when you're writing, when you're posting social information, when you're even when you're selling things, it comes through. And so someone fresh out of college, what we do is that what we did that was successful is that we made sure that they went through several weeks of going through buyer personas and the buyer process, and being able to put themselves in the customer's shoes, so that when problems came up, when challenges came up, when discussions and conversations came up with various departments about their goals and their needs, someone is always in the customer's shoes, seeing things from the customer's point of view, and it helped dictate how we came up with creative and inspirational solutions for them. Any other thoughts on that question?
Yeah.
I would just add, go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to add to that to kind of go back to Lynn's point of have them understand what the analytics mean and what all those numbers are trying to tell them. They might think that they had the greatest post in the world, and because they got enjoyment out of it and thought it was funny, and other things happened that ultimately the numbers might have told a different story. So I would advise them to kind of learn as much as they can about that platform, because there's always little nooks and crannies that you can do that go beyond kind of just simple posts and things and boosting posts and things of that sort that can help in organic reach and things of that sort, but also understand what all the metrics and all the analytics are telling you, so that you know that what you're doing is working or not working, can make that shift.
Andrew?
I would just say, kind of rank out where your strengths are, so you really know what's most impactful and what's not, so you can kind of focus your efforts there. But I do think, I mean, as we all get older, if you have someone right out of college, get their feedback too. What do you think is, what do we do well? What do you think we don't do well? So you two together can formulate a plan. But having, useful insights a lot of times might help us think a little bit differently than what we're used to.
Cool. Taylor, another question?
Sam Kleiman says, where does content marketing fall ranking-wise versus more traditional marketing channels when the product is entertainment?
I'll tackle that. It depends on the goal. So we need to understand what, is just posting something on social going to sell tickets? Maybe, depends. So I think what would be most important to answer that question is really define what is our goal. Because if it's new reach and new opportunities, and that's what you're looking to accomplish with content marketing, you're going to put together a completely different piece of content than if it is, speaking to membership. So I think define a goal first and understand where content fits into that. So it's almost an impossible question to answer without understanding what you're looking to accomplish with the piece of content. But content works really well as part of an overall strategy, because content is king, but it depends on how you're attempting to use that piece of content.
That's a good point. I'm going to jump in. At the Art Center, we did a balance of both. And so for us, we had two goals, like Andrew was saying. One was we wanted to capture new patrons' data, and the other was that we wanted to brand our Art Center as a venue, as a destination for entertainment and education. So we would use media that we could measure that engagement, that new patron engagement in collecting that data. So digital stuff like that, content, and sometimes even TV, to raise the bar for. We would choose that media for that goal. And then for the other messaging, which was important to our director, executive director, and other departments, branding ourselves as a destination for entertainment and education, we would use other methods. We would use more traditional methods in doing that, and a consistent message, versus the digital stuff may not have the same consistent message all the time. Our traditional media had that consistent message, and together they allowed us to do to grow our audience exponentially, but it also reinforced each other's media very well. So Lynn, you had a thought.
Well, I think that, like Andrew said, it's what are you using the content for? So content is king, and you can utilize content for various purposes. So are you going to use this content for outreach and a PR play? Are you going to use this content for a blog on your site? Are you using this content for social media posts? Are you using this content for native advertising as part of, an outreach paid strategy? So I don't think that content should be like I mentioned before, this or that kind of situation. It depends on what are you writing the content piece for, and then how are you going to promote that content piece? So are you promoting it through your social channels? Is it just sitting on your website as a blog? Are you submitting it to different various publications or media companies? Are you going to use it for an outbound strategy, paid strategy? So all of those elements need to be considered as you decide what to write, how long it's going to be, and what kind of metrics are you going to use to determine whether or not that piece was successful. So I think that traditional marketing has its place, and I also think that content has its growing place, and it's just a matter of how you're going to use it.
Cool. Eric, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everybody already said on the panel, but I think to have just a sole content strategy without a paid strategy behind it is going to miss the mark. You know, if you're pushing out good content and people coming back to the site to see dates and ticket prices, if you're not even just doing simple retargeting to that audience, I think that's a huge miss. So to everybody's point of knowing kind of what the strategy, the overall strategy is, but I think you have to couple it with some paid advertisement as well.
That's awesome. I know your time is valuable, everyone's time is valuable, and I know we've got to go. I want to thank everyone who listened and watched, and thanks to our panel, Lynn, Eric, and Andrew. I really appreciate your time. Again, feel free to reach out. Sam Kilman just wrote, thank you. P.S. Tom Brady is a cheater. Go Steelers. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Fine, we'll find out in a couple of weeks, I guess, right?
That's true. Reach out anytime to any of these people. Their emails are there on the screen for you. And here's to a great holiday and a great end of the year for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.